First creation story. And I love this story because it talks about how everything is good. God found that everything is very, very good. Now this first creation story, scholars put to the priestly writer. Within the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, it is thought that there are pretty much 4 authors, J-E-D-P. So J is the Yahwist, E is the Elohist, D is the Deuteronomist, and P is the priestly. And scholars believe that this first creation story is written by the priestly author. And it is taken from many, many myths, ancient myths, the Enuma Elish, the earliest writings. And it's helping the Israelites to understand who they are as a clan. This is all about community. So we start by imagining creation. Have you ever tried to imagine creation? Looking through the beginning of Genesis, when we imagine what is going on, even though we understand that this is over 14 billion years. This is an estimate. And so through this time, there's all these changes going on. But what we understand is that God took chaos and created order out of the chaos. And a beautiful, beautiful process of creation. God creates. God never stops creating. We are like putty. We, the pinnacle of God's creation, made in God's image, are the pinnacle of creation. God created us to be in relationship with us. So we have all these different understandings, and we learn in school about science and biology and history, and we have different understandings of how we got here. But when we look at this creation story, what we're seeing is beauty. What we're seeing is a piece of art. So God has created out of God's self. However we may see ourselves in this process, and all of it is good. But God didn't just snap God's fingers and say, poof, here you are. Went through, can you even imagine 14 billion? It's hard enough for me to even think about 100 years ago. I was reading a book the other day at the high school library while I was waiting for the marching band to finish their practice, and it was from 1900 to 1920. And it just kind of sank into me. It sank in how far we have come in creating since 1900. This is the way that life is for us. Some of you can remember when there wasn't the internet. Some of you can remember the very beginnings of computers and the space age, and just imagining going to the moon, that's just in your imagination. We can't possibly do that. But look at how far we have come through this beauty of creation. And yet, we find ourselves in a mess. And we, because God gave us free will, have created the mess. Mark 7:21a, and I shared that last week, talks about how the evil intention comes from within, and then we make it without. So, we can look at the beauty and see the horror that has also been perpetrated and we continue to perpetrate through our behavior. But what we are invited to today is the awe and the wonder of creation. Every single person here, every single person beyond these walls is made in God's image, God's likeness, God's diversity, God's beauty. Something that Kenny and I love to do. I mean, it's amazing to be in the parsonage, and we are so grateful that there is a place for us to live while we serve. We love to sit out on our swing in the summer, in the afternoon, and look out over the valley at God's provision. Imagine for yourselves your favorite place. Imagine the smell. Imagine the feel. Imagine what you're hearing. Maybe the birds singing, maybe barking of dogs, maybe the shh of the ocean. Just imagine. And now imagine if the elements that you are experiencing in your imagination was your Bible. How would you tell other people about the awe and the wonder of God through this thing that you love? Through this element or elements of creation. So we see how God created. We understand everything that goes into that story, into the myth. And we can look past all of those things, put them aside, and imagine the beauty, the awe, the wonder, the power and then we start to worry. We worry about things we have to do after church, or we worry about things that are coming up next week, or what we're going to do for Labor Day, or who's going to come to our Labor Day party tomorrow. What colors are we supposed to wear? How am I going to act when such and such person comes over? What am I going to do? How am I going to behave? How are they going to behave? After God was finished creating initially, say 14 billion years ago, God rested. We need to rest. Our culture pushes us to do some more and get stuff done. I can rest another time. I can take a 5-minute break here. I can take maybe a half-hour nap this afternoon. God rested. And it was very, very good. So I would like to encourage you to rest. I would like to encourage you to imagine with awe and wonder the beauty that we live within. When you look at something difficult, whether it's theoretical or whether it is right in front of you, also imagine the beauty of God that is before you and within you and behind you and under you and in front of you. And imagine the beauty that can come through you to touch someone, to bring healing to something, to listen. But we can't do any of that without rest, or we can't do it well. Imagine, because you can't do much more than imagine other than creation of your own, our own. Imagine how much you are loved. Imagine with awe and with wonder, and allow that love to flow through you and see what happens. In the name of God, our Creator, Redeemer, and Inspirer. Amen.